sorry, all terrific people I've known for 25 years, and without their investigative, digging deep, asking the tough questions, this would have been a very, very hard story, not only to tell, but also to engage the survivors who felt empowered by having the journalists tell the story and go get the depositions and get to senators and get to law enforcement. So, huge proponent of great journalism, and I'm very blessed that we were able to work with many of them, not only outside the film, but also they came back and participated in the interviews. So it was a big part of our family.
So who else? Or, I think we got that one. Yeah.
Thank you for being so compassionate in the way that you told the story. I'm wondering if you were able to have any private screening or anything with survivors and victims and how they felt about the filmmaking side of sharing their story, and what a hard job it must have been for you all to basically bring it to us from their point of view.
David, can you?
Great question.
Yeah, we were very sensitive to the survivors and did hold private screenings with them, and definitely we're careful about that and received their input.
Anybody else? Right here.
Yeah, I'm a physician and have been in academia all my life. And I'm so thrilled that you're able to expose the arrogance and unaccountability of the academic community. Do you think that this might be the first step in other areas? And I hope it is.
Great question, and thank you. As you know, Michigan State had a $500 million settlement. There was talk of the school going bankrupt. The medical school, which at MSU is where Larry Nassar did his training and was actually licensed to practice. And we found out much later that the dean of the medical school knew that something was going on. There were reports while he was in medical school, osteopathic technically, that he was acting strange and had some weird things on his computer, which turned out to be bazillions of pictures of porno. The dean never reported it. Other people told the dean, this is a person who may not be a good doctor. We need to keep an eye on this person. So to answer your question, and you've heard about what's going on at USC, obviously Penn State, other places. It's not just MSU. But I believe that people in academia will be taking a much more proactive look at this. And presidents and board of regents will also be looking at this also.
Yeah, I'll just add to that it's not just academia, but obviously in the sports governing bodies, very powerful, highly respected people like Scott Blackman, Steve Penny, head of the U.S. Olympic Committee, head of USA Gymnastics, who we found out who knew about this. But the problem is they were not independent. They have conflicting. The mission of the U.S. Olympic Committee is not to protect athletes. The mission of the U.S. Olympic Committee is to get money and to win medals. They're very clear about that. And so an independent body was set up called Safe Sport, supposedly independent, but it is primarily funded by the U.S. Olympic Committee. So we need more independence and more independent review.
Okay, next one. Right here.
Well, in regard to what you just said, and the first questioner reminded me, your film is so powerful and so important, but what you also highlight is not just the sexual abuse, but the physical abuse of young girls, little girls. Has the world of gymnastics taken a second look at that?
I think that as a filmmaker, I really wanted to think about it as an escalation that created this culture of you're not going to listen to your own body. And Isabel Hutchins says, in the film, it made me question, what really is pain? Which led to the perfect grooming spot of Larry Nassar. I mean, it's a good question. Will gymnastics change? Has it changed? Has it moved in any direction? I mean, it's very specific to each gym. I think that when you look at Amy Borman's gym, it's Evo Athletics, there's a lot of female coaches, there's a lot of empathic responses, like please listen to yourself, please feed yourself. So I'm hopeful that it's going in that direction, but I think that competitive sport breeds sometimes this intense, like the coach knows best. So I'm nervous about it as we like put young kids in these things.
I'll just say I have a little of a bias here. I'm a former collegiate gymnast. Both my daughters were in gymnastics. It's a tough sport. It's very demanding physically, emotionally, spiritually. I was blessed to have a wonderful coach, and he was tough on me, but not in an abusive way. And I've been in many gyms around the world and seen lots of different training styles. I will never make an excuse for the kind of training that you saw here with the Carolis or Getter. That was, clearly abuse across the board, physical, emotional, sexual, and all that. We need better coaches. We need coaches who are sensitive to mind and body. But there is a little bit of a gray area. It is a tough sport, and to make it at the elite level, it's a lot of work, and you do get injured. You definitely get injured. So it's a tough one.
If you're in the back and you're raising your hand, just do it. Just speak.
Given that there are broader implications at an international level, and there may be similar abuses going on in other countries that have important gymnastics programs, has the International Olympic Committee taken any action or heard about this, taken any attitude, started some initiative?
I think I heard most. You asked about is this going on in other countries?
No.
Well, it may or may not. Is the International Olympic Committee doing anything?
Okay. I can tell you firsthand because David and I both serve on several commissions in the International Olympic Committee family. And I filed a formal complaint with the Ethics Committee. They and I went to senior members who've been with the Olympic Committee 40, 50 years and sort of the gurus. They didn't believe me. They said, yeah, every sport has problems, and certainly America has its problems, and there are pockets of abuse, but we don't believe that. And then I shared some of the media reports and the Indy Star outline. They wrote back and said, gee, this is very sad, but we don't think this is a crisis. After things really started developing and major news came out, we started hearing from the president of the International Olympic Committee, who said this is outrageous. He wanted to set up a victims' compensation fund. He also told us that there are 205 nations, 205 countries in the Olympic family, the U.S. being one of those 205. I can't protect every athlete in every country. You guys need to govern in the United States. You need to get your USOC people on top of this and clean it up. I support you, I hear you, but I'm not going to jump in and do anything about this.
We got one more. Time for one more? Sure.
Go for it. Okay. I want to go back to your answer to the last question about this being a tough sport. I think one of the things that's really important to recognize is that the health and well-being of young people in sports, you can't separate out their sexual well-being, their physical well-being, and their emotional well-being. And so I think it's really important as part of this film, and I want to ask again about the ways in which there are a lot of people who stayed in their lane, or thought they were staying in their lane, and outsourced something to, the doctor was the one who's going to worry about your health and well-being and not us, right? And so how do you think about that message coming out of this film in terms of it being everybody's responsibility and not just of certain people to take care of the health and well-being of young people in one particular way? Because saying it's a tough sport, or we're going to outsource to somebody else who became their friend and their caregiver, that I think is part of what happens when you have a sexual abuse problem.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's part of the big problem here is people have had a narrow perspective and said it's not our problem. When the U.S. gymnastics crisis first broke, the USOC, U.S. Olympic Committee's first response was, oh, we can't control what they do, they're a separate entity, and of course, that turned out to be completely false. And now after pressure from Congress, they finally are moving to decertify the U.S. Gymnastics Federation. And the whole system of, at the Crowley Ranch, no parents are allowed. I mean, that is pathetic. Their parents should be able to have access to their kids at all times. The moment you're told your parents can't be there, I mean, that's a red flag. So just so much need to be changed. No one-on-one situations with coaches and athletes, greater transparency, mandatory reporting, all that's required.
And I think that in making this in a post-Me Too, I think there's a lot here to say about adolescent sort of sexuality that, like as a young person, people couldn't bring themselves to say somebody was touching them inappropriately. There's just this level of that you don't want to communicate about it. And I hope that young girls and young men being raised in today, we have access to more information about talking to somebody like this is what happened versus seeing it as it's something that I did that I should be ashamed about. You see, I think it's Melody who says I don't have to live in this darkness. I don't have to be ashamed about this. As she heads into court. I mean, that's what we really wanted to think about with this movie, how to really bring this from the darkness into the light and empower people and really give them the superhero treatment because they are. And I think that is just, communication and being able to talk about these things in real time.
And I'll just finish that we plan to follow up the film with an educational program. We're going to be touring the film around universities around the country and have an educational program connected to it.
Thank you.